What's up, guys? Welcome into a live edition of our Friday show. It's the last show of the month. Figured we would do it live. We're going to be joined by our good friend, SEC Mike. I didn't put this out there. I didn't say join us Friday. And like, I don't know if anyone's going to show up, but it'll be fun either way. And honestly, it's one less thing to do in the editing process. So very excited about today's show. We're going to talk with our buddy, Mike Bratton from SEC Mike, that SEC podcast. We're going to preview the Ole Miss game, break all that down. Before we get into that, though, this is the game plan for today. We're going to talk about that, talk about some other things around the SEC in kind of an odd weekend for the SEC in general, but get into the nitty-gritty of the Ole Miss South Carolina game, especially, with all of the coaching rumors that are circulating about Lane Kiffin. Is there any lost focus? They're also coming off a pretty massive win against Oklahoma on the road. Is there any ability you get them in a trap game? We answer all those questions, and we do it with one of the guys who covers the sport better than anyone else, Mike Bratton. Before we do that, want to pay some bills real quick. Don't get mad. And we're going to talk about our friends real quick at Mazda. Mazda is sponsoring today's show. We appreciate them. And listen, I can tell you what, like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later in this episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move or Be Moved. Let's get into today's show. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at that are making the Locked On Gamecocks your first listening to every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're free and available podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Mike, thank God you're here. Already lost 3 viewers since we started. How are you, sir?
Your team today. What's up, buddy?
What's up, dude? How's the week been?
It's been good. It's been good. I had some car trouble. That's why I'm late. Sorry about that.
That's cool. Well, that's good. You're having a much better week than a lot of people in the SEC. So it's been a wild week, to say the least. I want to talk about the SEC. I want to start with this game first, obviously, though, Locked On South Carolina. We'll answer some questions, throw them in the comment section, all that kind of stuff. We appreciate you guys watching now. Mike, first and foremost, when you look at this game, just what are your it's a 12.5-point line. We're going to get into the predictions later, but just your initial thoughts on this. What does South Carolina need to do above anything else to be in this game?
Well, who knows? If I really want to know if last week was an outlier or not, because South Carolina looked pretty good. Had they been able to finish in the red zone, had some questionable calls gone their way. We're looking at this game completely differently. And, have they fixed a lot of their woes on the offensive side of the football? I think Lenore Sellers continue. No one can see it aside from, people that are really paying attention to the team, like your listeners. But outside the SEC, I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to Sellers and the improvements he's made. Rashul Faison, I know he had the big mistake, but even he had a really good performance last week. So can we carry that over? Because Ole Miss, as good as they are, and they're very good, and, their defense made plays last week, but the defense is not far from elite. I'll put it that way. So, you got to win the turnover battle. Stuff like that's kind of obvious. But I think what you're really hoping for, there's a reason, Chris, I call him Lane Whiffen.
Yeah.
He drops these games he shouldn't. And I think this is a big-time trap game for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I was kind of referring to that before you came on, is that, I feel like with them coming off the game against Oklahoma, the way that we saw them close out November of last year, one of the things, too, I thought that was, really obvious about last year's team for Ole Miss. And every year it feels like he's made a step forward for Lane Kiffin. They got trounced by Georgia in 2023, right? And then 2024 they win, and he was like, that's the one we had circled. We had been doing install for that all offseason. That was a major, major focus for us. And then you go to Florida a week or two later and you drop that game. Coming off the Oklahoma game, it feels very much like the haze in the barn. It feels like, honestly, Ole Miss could lose another game and still get to the playoffs, which is where their ranking is and their strength of schedule and all that kind of stuff. I know the Georgia game already happened. I know they're at home, but it's not exactly like Vaught Hemingway's a very difficult place to play. They've played well there under Kiffin over the last couple of years, but still, it's not like it's it's one of the smaller venues in the entire SEC.
I think it's in competition with Kroger for the worst home field in the SEC.
Yeah, nobody walks into Kroger at night. Not in downtown Atlanta. I love some of the comments that are being made here. And this, I think this is pretty spot on. I've witnessed it firsthand all week. LSU got gutted. Why could we not play them at this point of the season? I mean, dude, LSU doesn't have a president, an athletic director, or a coach right now. Could Lane Kiffin overlook South Carolina because of our record? Could that be the edge we need? I think that that's a fair thing to say. I go back to what you brought up at the start with Faison. I thought was very interesting. And they did a good job of this. But, like, when he fumbled, I was very nervous that meant he was done for the rest of the game. And against Alabama, especially with their run defense, you need a guy like that in there. I feel like and I like Fuller and I like Attaway. But I also think that Faison has the highest ceiling of any three of those backs. I know that a lot of South Carolina fans might not agree with that, but that's just what I see. If he fumbles in that game and you take him out for the rest of that game, his confidence is probably shattered for the rest of the season. I don't know I don't know how big of a deal it is they kept him in there, but I think you're going to need that kid to perform very well this upcoming game if they're going to have a chance to win.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Chris. And also, if you study Ole Miss, I don't know how many of your audience has studied Ole Miss defense, but the weakest part of that defense, and again, it's not like it's totally poor defense, but I would say the weakness big time is their secondary and their corners. Right. And we have seen Nick Harbor, he can really get you over the top, obviously. Sellers, not just the last game, but Missouri stands out as another one.
Yeah.
He can hit you over the top. I think that's going to be something to watch in this game. I think South Carolina, and particularly Nick Harbor, can really push the roof off this defense, so to speak. Yeah. If they can hit a big player or two, watch out. And again, Ole Miss is likely headed to the playoff, right?
Right.
They almost lost to Washington State at home.
Right.
And if you go back and watch that game, it was not a fluke. It was just Washington State played equal to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is just obviously way better. Right.
I think the other part too is I brought this up on the other show the other day, and Cocktober is like a big
Cockvember now.
Somebody dropped a different one that was like what it should be called. And I'm having a hard time remember what it was, but Cocktober was kind of a dud. But if you look at the November closes that Beamer's had, like especially 2022, the game against Tennessee and then Clemson last year, the way they closed out, obviously winning all 4 or 5 games they had then. I think it was 5. I don't think that's going to happen. I do feel like I don't want to say overly confident, but I feel pretty good that you have a chance to go and get one. And of the ones they have left, I think Clemson is one that is I don't see them beating A&M at College Station. I just don't. I see them beating Coastal Carolina, even though they got a big win last night over Marshall. And then Clemson, I think they can beat, especially if they're still banged up like they are now. But this feels like your last chance to really get into a spot where you're going to be able to make a bowl game. And I wonder how creative the offense is in comparison to what they were a week ago. Because I thought last week, listen, the results sucked. Only scored 22 points, 22 total points, and then you had 335 total yards of offense. It felt like you took a step forward, though.
Yeah, certainly. And to your point, Beamer, 13-4 in November. Cockvember is what we should be calling it. But why can't they beat A&M? I mean, A&M's Texas 8-4 is what I call them, Chris.
Yeah.
All they've done is go 8-0. So they're destined to lose the last 4 until they get to 9. I'm calling them Texas 8-4 till further notice. So, but obviously it starts here on Saturday. Ole Miss again. This the ultimate trap game here. Ole Miss, they had no business last year losing to Florida. I think this South Carolina team is very similar to that Florida team with. An emerging quarterback and everything like that. So I think there's a real opportunity. Again, I'm not afraid of Vaught Hemingway.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the most win or lose, I can already tell you what's going to happen, Chris. Kiffin's going to get to his post game and he's going to complain about the student section and the fans not being like they were in Georgia, not like we saw in Norman, Oklahoma the week. He's going to make note of it. This is like every couple of games a season, he's making note of how horrible the fan experience is in Oxford.
Yeah. It's weird too, it's a night game because it's on during 2 other games. I'm going to be in my battle with my fiance of figuring out which screen I'm allowed to watch this on, because Auburn and Kentucky are playing at the same time. I also would like to watch this Oklahoma-Tennessee game. So we're going to have to go get her some margaritas early in the day and see if we can knock her out by 8. That sounds very bad and very dark, but also it's just
I was just thinking. I was like, questionable. Hey,
I should have brought that up before.
Can I throw this your way real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So last week, and I hate to bring this up, but I think your audience will like this. So when Bama tied it up, right?
Yeah.
Carolina got the ball. They all know. But before the drive started, I tweeted, all right, here is the Mike Shula legacy drive. And we all know how it happened. I mean, could it be more on the nose than that?
Dude, what happened earlier in the season? I was like, against Oklahoma, I was like, Mike Shula legacy game. Like he's finally creative. And then he gets inside the 10-yard line. All right, we got to take a quick break. I'm going to remove you from the screen. You're going to make faces and try to throw me off as I try to make my ad read. But we will be right back with more SC Mike. Again, if you guys have questions in the comments, throw them on in there. We will answer all of them. This is one of my favorite shows. We haven't been able to do it in a couple weeks. It's my own fault just from being busy on Friday. But do want to say real quick, give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's show. We did it earlier. We'll do it again. Our friends at Mazda. And thank you so much for supporting the show. Mike, I can still hear you. Just be quiet. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment of the game, moving the game forward, is I got to go with the touchdown of Nick Harbor. I think that could pay dividends in the long run because you finally took the top off the defense, and for the first time really all season, you saw it result in a touchdown. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like there's been a ton of offensive touchdowns that I can go back and count from the season, and none that really felt like they finally got him on a go route. You hit him in stride, and he scores a touchdown. That is my Mazda moving the game forward moment of the week. I think that's huge to continue moving forward this season. Him and Vandrevius Jacobs can give people fits if they're both at their A game, which I'm hoping they will be this weekend. I tell you what, though, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to Mazda as a vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. We're going to move along to the next segment here. We'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks after this. Oh, boy. I don't know what's happening here.
You like my Halloween outfit? I'm a Kentucky fan.
That's good. I saw somebody the other day, and I can't remember his name. He's really funny. I think he's kind of like me, not the funny part. I'm not giving myself that much
Cousin
credit.
Shane?
It's not Cousin Shane. Thank you. It's a guy on South Carolina Twitter who's like a Red Sox fan, just like me, and he's a South Carolina fan. And he wrote something about how he goes, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to go to my job and do nothing the entire day. When my boss asks me what's wrong, I'm going to say I'm Mike Shula for Halloween. I thought that was pretty good. Okay, getting back into this game, I think going into what Ole Miss does well that South Carolina needs to be wary of. What I know Trinidad Chambliss has been fantastic. I think that Keelan Lacey's been one of the more underrated backs in the conference this year. What are some things South Carolina needs to look out for this weekend?
Well, I think anytime you face Ole Miss, it's that tempo. That's how they get you. You know that, and it was very interesting. I don't know how much of your audience have gone back and watched Ole Miss Oklahoma, but Kiffin made no secret that Oklahoma, they like to steal your signals and everything like that. So they huddled until the play clock hit 15, so that they couldn't communicate with their players via the headset. Oklahoma couldn't. Right. So that was the first time I think under Lane Kiffin I've not seen Ole Miss go tempo. So I would imagine they're certainly going to go back to that. That just kills you. You hammered it though. I mean, Kiffin, we give him credit for being a quarterback guru, if you will, but really their bread and butter is the running game with Keelan Lacey. He's awesome this year. And really what they really do is they have really utilized the tight end too. Yeah. When they have a tight end and they got one in right this year, it just makes that offense near impossible to slow down.
If you told me that kid was a transformer, and that kid, he is. If you look, I look at him the same way I looked at Nazir Stackhouse for Georgia a couple years ago. If you told me that kid was 6'11", 400 pounds, I'd be like, yeah. And he runs a 4.4. Like, he's the best athlete I've ever seen in my life.
Hey, this is how delusional I am, Chris, and I think you could like get on board with this.
Yeah,
but they mentioned that guy's weight, and it was identical to mine, and I was like, I'm just a hell of an athlete. Is all I am, you know.
That's like the worst part about gaining weight. I remember somebody was showing me some old game the other day, and they were like, that is the left guard there, John Buckley. He's 222 pounds. I was like, geez. We could have played left guard in the 70s. Anyway, okay, so this is a point that Big Red makes. And Big Red, appreciate you in the comments. Appreciate you watching the show. No faking the injuries this year. Beamer made sure of that for last year's game. That is true. Last year's game sucked so bad. I mean, like, I'm not trying to talk myself into the delusion. I would love for this to be a South Carolina win, if for nothing more than just to rub it in the face of some of the other Locked On hosts. But I also think that, like, if there's any parallels to how they closed last year, like the Cocktober thing versus November is really, really interesting, because just the way that they've closed out seasons, 13-4 under him, is really, really impressive. 2 of those 4 losses are to, I believe, ranked Clemson teams. And then I forgot the other 2. But I feel like if you can figure out a way to win this game or keep it close, it kind of reminds me of last year when they had the Bama situation, again, coming out of the Bama game. Close game, could have won. It comes out of your grasp. It slips out of your grasp, whatever. And then you go on this run and you find your identity as a team. I would love if they could just find their identity as a team. This is crazy. I would love if they came out and they were throwing to the tight end to start the game, trying to loosen up some of that line, and then also take some deep shots. And I truly do believe that with Harbor kind of emerging last week, they do have 2 really legitimate threats. I know Jaden Sellers is out. He was a target last week for them, but there's still so much talent in this receiver room. I feel like they can take advantage.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Chris. You tell me, for the matchup against Ole Miss, I don't think South Carolina wants to get into a shootout, try to outscore them. I think what you want to do is play ball control. And what we have seen, like, take, for example, the Georgia game, and I realize, it's Georgia, it's at Georgia, it was a difficult opponent. But Ole Miss, I mean, they were just going up and down the field on them.
Right.
But then they had 2 3-and-outs, and it was like it was ball game. And there's a lot of great things about Trinidad Chambliss' game, and he deserves all the credit in the world. I think if Ole Miss goes 11-1, which it's not a given, but if they do, he needs to be a Heisman contender, certainly. But there's one massive weakness in his game is pushing the ball down the field.
Yeah.
So Carolina's got a really good secondary. I think you could kind of play one-on-one back there. He's not going to beat you over the top. So force everything. I sell out against the run. And if you can get a 3-and-out like Georgia did, Georgia got 2 in a row. Those were literally the only 2 stops they got in the game, and they dominated the fourth quarter. If you can get a stop or 2, eat up the clock, I think it could potentially really take Ole Miss out of their rhythm on offense. I think that's the key to South Carolina winning this game.
I'll tell you the other thing, too, is I keep saying this. The NFL, right, is a copycat league. We talk about that all the time, and that's fine. I think that when you talk about what team has had the most success against Ole Miss this year, it's the team that beat them, and that's Georgia. And what did they do offensively? They ran the football effectively, and they were also really, really big in their screen games. Like, their screen games were awesome. This is a much different team than last year's Ole Miss team. They're still very good. Like, they're still very good. Trinidad Chambliss has been awesome. It's a great story. I say it all the time. We love our D2 athletes on this show. We're never going to say anything bad about those guys. But when you talk about just from how they're built versus last year is a team that was like 3rd in the country in sacks for the season, and that was with 3 less games than everyone else played. This year, I'm looking at it right now, they're 13th in the SEC in sacks this year with 13 total. And they do not get the quarterback the same. What Georgia did they had so much success with was they were able to keep Gunnar Stockton upright, but then also they kept doing the quick screen game out on the perimeter with some of their electric athletes out there. I wonder if they're going to be able to do something like that with for South Carolina and figure out a way to have like these bunch formations, get some guys in some slip screens, have some success there. And then, Mike, if they keep going to it, Pete Golding is not a very patient defensive coordinator. He starts walking those safeties down, then you can hit somebody deep.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, to your point, last year,
diggity.
Ole Miss was so good on that defensive line. They had frontline talent, NFL caliber talent. They're still good. They're still, I would say, very good on the defensive line, but not near elite like they were. And more importantly, Chris, they don't have the depth.
Right.
That's what killed them against Georgia. They were sucking wind big time. They could not stop Georgia at the tail end of that game. And quite frankly, they stepped up big against Oklahoma. Right. But again, if you go back and if you've actually watched that game or studied it, there were a lot of plays to be made that John Mateer, for whatever reason, was not seeing it, was not throwing it to the wide open guys. He was forcing the issue to guys that were, covered, or he just was incomplete or inaccurate with his passes.
Yeah.
Plays are there to be made, and I trust Sellers, if the plays are there, to make them.
Yeah, I agree. We're gonna go to one more break, and we come back. I'm gonna ask you 3 questions, get you out of here. Maybe talk about some some things in the SEC as well. Maybe see if you want to coach LSU on down here. That was one of the things I did a show on the other day, man, is that like there's so many jobs in the SEC now, and South Carolina is one of them too, where it's like everyone's frustrated and they're pissed off about how maybe their season's going or they want so-and-so fired. Man, it's like a universal thing in the SEC right now, at least you're not LSU, because that's insane. I'm going to take you out here, and then we're gonna bring you back. Let me see how to do this. Learning as we go. Should definitely know how to do this by now. All right. Before we go to break, let me pay some more bills and give you guys a shout out to our friends at DoorDash. This is actually one of my favorite things that we do each and every Friday before the games. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For me, personally, I thought it was the edge rushers for South Carolina. I thought they did such a great job, and it wasn't just Dylan Stewart getting in the backfield. He was causing fits as well, but there were some really, really big and consistently big plays from the edge rushers at South Carolina, especially going up against a right side that it's a 5-star for Alabama named Michael Carroll, a true freshman. But the other side, Caden Proctor, he was having fits all day as a potential top 10 pick. So those are my players of the week in terms of who delivered in a big way. When the pressure was on, I felt like they came through. I know the game didn't end the way we wanted to, but still, just like South Carolina's edge rushers delivered for South Carolina, DoorDash delivers on your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday to your order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day, only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period is through November 8th. So coming up on 2 more Saturdays left with that. Also want to give a shout out to our friends at FanDuel. I've hit a cold streak. I should have been bragging about it, but there is some good news too. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action with the NBA than the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and that is FanDuel. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're going to go to a quick little break, and we'll be right back to close out the show. All right, we're back. SEC Mike. Yeah. Cousin Shane. Let's get into I want to answer a couple of these questions. Dude, Big Red 2494, appreciate you for watching the entire show and also throwing out some of the questions. He says, we aren't scared of Lane Train now. Former coach Matt Luke. Come on, Matt Luke, former head coach, Ole Miss football.
No need to be afraid of Matt Luke. He's a heck of a nice guy.
That is my best impression. I that's why I failed in comedy. I wouldn't say I failed, but that's why I never made it.
You're a winner in my book.
Thanks, brother. None of my impressions were any good. Or like I didn't have any good relevant ones. It was like I could do the Tom Modette Motel 6 guy. I'm Tom Modette. And then you could do Louis Armstrong, which no one cares about, and then also Matt Luke. That's the whole range of them there. He says, do we double up on tight ends to protect Sellers if he's going to stay in the pocket? Maybe we see more 12 and 13 personnel. I don't know. I think that like this is your last chance at really going all out, I feel like, to make a bowl game.
But to your point, Chris, they don't get after the quarterback, so you shouldn't need added protection.
Exactly. Maybe you keep one in to chip, but I just want to see something more similar to what we saw in the first start of the year against against Virginia Tech on that first drive. I was hoping that we'll see more of that throughout the season. Okay, I want to ask you 3 questions. And the last one is going to be a prediction on the game. Here we go. Touching my glasses. So here is the first question. If South Carolina is going to win this game, how many points do they need to score?
At least 28.
I was going to say 30. 28. Okay, I like that. If they win, you can't say Lenore Sellers, but if they win on Saturday at Ole Miss, it's because of who in that game?
Dylan Stewart.
Okay, that feels like also like a 38. What Puss in Boots XL says. Yeah, I don't mind that either. Okay, and then last but not least, man, give me a prediction on the game. Score prediction.
Do you really want to hear it?
Is it bad?
It's my lock of the week. I'll just
No. Your lock of the week has been bad.
I've got Ole Miss 30, Carolina 13. So
okay, no, I'm not mad. Because that is what the last guest, Clint Lamb, we love him to death. He picked 30-13 from South Carolina versus Bama. I picked 30-10. So we're gonna ride I wouldn't say the hot hand, but I feel like there's some good luck in there. And also drop your score predictions on the side. I will say this. I don't think this is a game that South Carolina is going to be able to win and hang for 4 quarters. I do expect them to turn a corner a little bit and keep this game much closer than people think. I will say it is final score Ole Miss 34 and then South Carolina 24. I think it's an Ole Miss drive late like we saw against Kentucky where they score late and they stay in this game.
And to your point, Chris, my locks of the week this year, 60% of the time, they work every time. So you got to like those odds if you're Carolina on the road. Yeah,
I love that. Mike, tell everyone where they can find you. Give them your home address and your social security number.
Yeah, it's
or I will.
3727 Saddlebags Boulevard.
Saddlebags.
SEC Mike, search that, and you'll get more nonsense. The show's That SEC Podcast. We just got over 2.5 million video views in the last month alone. So come hang out. And cousin, thanks to you. And if you think I'm entertaining, I'm about 1/100th as entertaining as cousin Shane. So come hang out with us.
Love it. All right, dude. We'll do it again next week. I promise. Promise.
I like this one from Big Ray.